So you're saying right now, like you're going to tell an up and coming cat or young lady that wants to be a producer, you don't need to know music at all. Just hit Fruity Loops.
I'm not making any suggestion. I'm making the observation that when I look at the music business and I see which producers have legacies, which producers have influence, and which producers are currently on top right now. Of course, it's widespread. I got to pull up a tweet from you. What's going down? It is the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. This is episode 107. We've been powered by BeatStars for a while. Every Monday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're live with our free music business mentorship program. Just tune in, beatstars.live. I got to pull up this damn tweet that Dame sent. In the meantime, how are you feeling, Dame? You're now an engaged man. Life is different. You were in Hawaii. You learned how to surf. You hunted lobster with your bare hands. How was that?
Yeah, I did almost none of that except go to Hawaii, but nothing has really changed yet. Just a lot of wedding talk already. I tried to tell her to give me 2 weeks before that starts because I know it's about to get crazy. She already violated that proposed rule. So I didn't think she was going to stick to it anyway. But everything's good, man. Went to my first LA Galaxy game yesterday. That was pretty cool. I'm not a huge soccer fan, but I appreciate the sport. I lived a couple of years in London, and I grew to appreciate the sport. But I haven't been to an LA Galaxy game, and they've been here since '96. So it took me 25 years to get to an LA Galaxy game, but it was dope. They won 3-1.
Yeah, see, it was all leading up to that one moment. Yeah, you tweeted something. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday about people leaving, great people leaving the music industry because, well, I'll just read the tweet. So many great people leave the music industry because even with hard work and the best of intentions, you'll have to go through some degree of doubt, lies, scrutiny, deceit, and disloyalty. It's hard to make the potential return worth it. Keep the right people around you. It sounds like the script to a trailer to like a new made for TV drama or like a Netflix original, doubt, lies, scrutiny, deceit, and disloyalty. It's like Dame's on the new season of Power or something.
Yeah, I mean, this industry invites a lot of weirdos, and we talk about how unorganized it is and how you meet like just different types of people because there's no structured path to get into the music industry. There's no certain amount of education required to be in the music industry. People enter the music industry at different points. Like some people may have gone to studied the music industry in school, and then they did have a more structured path. Maybe they got an internship, then rose up through the ranks. Some people just catch a viral hit and now they're in the music industry. So, and everything in between. So because of that, and because, the music industry, the reputation, it just has a cloud of skepticism over it. Everybody's kind of moving and operating with their guard up. And then some people are really trying to take advantage of people. And you don't really know who is who because a lot of people are fake. A lot of people are, so it just creates a really weird environment. And, there are people that enter the music industry with the best intentions. They work really hard. And then they meet some of these people that don't have the best of intentions, or they're just out for themselves, or they may act like they're on your team. And then eventually somebody gets in their ear and then things go haywire. There's just a lot of things that can happen. And at the end of the day, I just feel like you have to have a very strong foundation. You have to be very confident in yourself, assure yourself, and you have to have people around you that really genuinely care and support you and are honest with you. And that's, I'm not gonna say that's hard to find. Would you think it's fair to say it's hard to find in the music industry? Like that, I came in with that type of support, like outside of the music industry. So even though my shit blew up with Hop and things like that, people reach out to me, ask you okay? You okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Cause I have a support network of people outside of the music industry. I have a really solid tribe, but I could imagine not having that and having that happen to somebody. Now you're faced with all these death threats and all this ridiculous shit that really is uncalled for and it's not true, and you're bombarded with all these messages, how that might send somebody in a downward spiral that maybe they never come back from. Um, and yeah, I think I went through an extreme, but the point is, like, you're probably going to have to go through some very weird experiences that are foreign to you before entering the music industry. And you have to, like I said, you have to have a strong foundation. You have to have good people around you. You have to be in a good, healthy mental state to deal with some of this bullshit, because it's not natural, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
I think it chases a lot of good people out of the music industry, even if you have the best of intentions, because sure, some people make a lot of money in this music industry, but you can make so much more money elsewhere, right? So it's like, why subject myself to this industry and all the things that come with it for a small chance at making a lot of money? Like, it's tough to make the potential return worth all the bullshit. And I've just seen, and I'm not even just, some people might be listening to this podcast at this point, like, Dame's always bringing up Funk Volume, his experience, he's jaded, whatever. I know a lot of people, good people, that have left the music industry because the shit's just not worth it. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody. I'm trying to prepare you to just, again, strong foundation, good, healthy mental state, and keep solid people around you. And, hopefully you won't be one of them that gets chased out.
Yeah, it almost feels like the people that are persisting and surviving in the music business are on opposite ends of the good bad spectrum. They're either really good and they're so good that they're able to survive and they have good people around them, or they're so bad and so terrible that all of that negative energy and exploitation just fuels them. I want to ask you a question that is kind of related to that. So I think you posted a clip from last week's podcast on Instagram where I was talking about this really stupid time waste of a debate between producers who, on the one hand say you have to learn how to master an instrument in order to make great beats, and those who say, well, no, clearly that's not true. And in my opinion, I feel like there's just way more verifiable data that support the second point. And like, if you name all the great producers, the influential producers, everyone from, like, we don't know Rick Rubin as a master instrumentalist. We don't know DJ Premier as a great player of an instrument, or Just Blaze or Alchemist or DJ Muggs or Kanye West or Diddy or anybody. RZA, maybe they play some instruments, maybe they had some training, but that's not how we know them, and that's not how they created their classics. So I feel like that's kind of a non-debate that we just cling to. But you posted.
Well, before, let me just ask you this though, because I equate that to a debate of whether or not you need to go to business school, like to have, to build a solid business or something like that, right? It's like, of course, the answer is no, right? We see a lot of people building $1 million, $1 billion businesses that dropped out of college, dropped out of high school, whatever. However, on the flip side of that, if you did go to business school, like, I don't know anybody that I went to business school with that's struggling, like, at all. Like, I don't, but I do know people that didn't go to school that are struggling. So I think if you have a certain level of experience and education, like, it raises your floor. So bringing it back to production, like, if you do know music, you do master an instrument, does it raise your floor or increase or decrease your chance for, like, not making it at all? Right? Because to me, like, if you do know music, you kind of understand why certain sounds are resonating, and kind of how to like keep reinventing yourself or like establish your own sound better. Not saying that you can't do that without mastering an instrument or learning music, but people that have that knowledge, I'm assuming can do it faster and just have a better on average. Like let's not cherry pick somebody that just some type of genius and heard some music and was like, all right, now I'm Pharrell. Like that's on average, the people that know music are going to have an easier time with production. Is that fair to say?
I honestly disagree with that. And I've been in the studio with a ton of amazing musicians who just can't put a beat together. Because if you're formally trained, number one, I up until very recently, there weren't really programs, formal educational programs, housed in these institutes that taught you how to make beats. They and even to this day, I mean, they teach you how to, work a DAW, but they don't teach you how to make music that people are going to love. I don't see how that's even possible. But the analogy, when we're talking about musicians with formal training, people who went to school to learn how to compose, people who went to school to learn how to sing opera, people who were in these performance programs, whatever, I really can't look at them and say, yeah, the majority of them aren't struggling, because I think the majority of them are. And then when I look at the landscape of producers, pop producers, rap, hip hop producers, EDM producers at the highest level, I honestly think just naming a couple of the top folks are really, they're not known for having mastered an instrument, and the ones
I think like, okay, take Matt. So they're saying they don't know. So you're saying right now, like you're gonna tell an up and coming cat or young lady that wants to be a producer, you don't need to know music at all. Just hit Fruity Loops. Like that's your official MEC suggestion, because more producers don't really know music like that. This is your official suggestion because more producers these days just get on Fruity Loops and start figuring it out. That's your opinion and that's your suggestion.
I'm not making any suggestion. I'm making the observation that when I look at the music business and I see which producers have legacies, which producers have influence, and which producers are currently on top right now, I can't name more than one that I can confirm has mastered an instrument.
So again, take mastered an instrument, because when you say mastered an instrument, people are going to be like, oh, he has to be like the equivalent of an 8th degree black belt in, like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the person has a foundation and in music, like knows music, like knows keys, knows like notes, things like that. Like, I'm not saying they have to be Mozart. I'm saying that they have a foundation in music, as opposed to like just hopping on Fruity Loops and start like putting together sounds. You're telling me more producers are the latter than have a foundation in like formal music training.
I would say so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Wow. I have no idea, but that would be mind blowing to me if that was the case, that more producers today just hopped on and just started figuring it out by ear, as opposed to having some type of foundation in formal training of music.
Yeah, I ask a lot, I interview a ton of producers and I ask them, and it's usually a matter of them wanting to learn an instrument or wanting to learn more music theory after they've already started their process of learning how to make beats, and they're at a pretty proficient level. Because I think the conversation itself is flawed, because we're equating formal training with creation, and they're not the same. You can learn how to be the best pianist and you're playing other people's pieces. That's not the same as learning how to drum program, learning how to sequence, learning how to use filters, learning how to use plugins, learning how to mix and gain stage, learning how to do any of this stuff. It's not about you can play a guitar very technically well and be a virtuoso, and that doesn't mean you can jump on a DAW, play an 8 measure riff that just conveys so much feeling in that one section of music that's all at once simplistic and impactful. And then in addition to playing that riff, create an entire backing track around it, drums, bass, this and that. I mean, you essentially become a multi-instrumentalist, and that's something that a lot of people downplay, because and I hate this conversation, but it's ongoing. And what you'll often hear, and I brought up an example of that last week, was somebody saying, it's infinitely easier to master a DAW than it is to master an instrument. And I'm like, that's a weird opinion, because one, this concept of mastery, it's like, when have you actually mastered something? Is that even possible? You can be an undeniably talented player, or you can be an undeniably talented producer or beat maker. When have you reached the level of mastery? That's really kind of not something that I would ever feel comfortable saying. That's more of an opinion. With regards to the DAW, it's still an instrument. It's still something that you have to learn, and it's still something that's full of surprises, and you can always elevate whatever you learn. So I think there's still this perception that's grounded in more traditional views of music, and modern music like hip hop and EDM and all this other stuff really goes against a lot of those traditions and a lot of those norms of the ivory tower of music, and puts the emphasis on the creator who's really creating something out of nothing with very little formal training and a lot of, I guess, what we would call raw talent, a lot of feeling, a lot of emotion. And so I'm absolutely not saying don't learn music theory, and I'm absolutely not downplaying a person's ability to play an instrument well. I wish I could play instruments better. But in my experience working with people who are learning how to make beats, who are great players and who have formal training, they're still trying to figure out how to make beats like the person that's never touched a guitar or a piano in their lives and just is fluent with the DAW and can somehow capture a mood, somehow capture a feeling. And ultimately, isn't that what we're wanting to do? I mean, if you want to be a master, prima donna in a symphony, you don't need to learn how to compose. You need to learn how to play your instrument and convey emotion by doing that. And that's very different from creating something out of thin air for the people to consume, all on your own or with a handful of collaborators. So my thing is, if I were to make an official suggestion, it would be, don't psych yourself out, one, over this conversation about mastering an instrument, two, about even listening to this conversation and allowing it to stress you out and make you think that you need all of this extra stuff, because ultimately, if you're making music that's resonating with people, you're making music that's resonating with people, and that makes you an effective musician. I don't like the argument. I think everyone's valid. If you play an instrument well, great. If you make great beats but don't play an instrument well, great. Everybody's winning.
Your opinion on this is more valid than mine. I mean, you are a producer. In my mind, I would just think that if you kind of know music, it would. And I look at people like I'm assuming Scott Storch. Well, I've seen him play the piano. Like I see like the stuff that he does is amazing, and stuff, how quick that he does it. I'm assuming a lot of that is just experience making beats, but I think it's his ability to play the instruments as well. But we can move on, because
well, I'm curious. Then I would ask you, can you name more producers who have that level of instrument mastery?
I don't. Again, I want to get away from mastery, because that's,
or just anyone you've seen play proficiently an instrument. Any other?
Yeah, like typically the artists that and not just production, because I'm not sure to what extent like Ty Dolla $ign calls himself a producer, but like typically the people that I gravitate to, a lot of times I find out that they have the ability to play an instrument or are more formally trained in music. So like Ty Dolla $ign, I don't know if he's a producer, but just with a lot of people's music that I later find out, like they have some formal training in music or can play a little bit. I mean, even Hobson can, do some stuff on the piano. And I think that helps him with his production. Yeah, I wouldn't know. You've had a lot more conversations with producers than I have. I just going based off my experience as a fan and just kind of what I see online. And just in my mind, kind of what makes sense to me, drawing some of the comparisons to, like I said, going to business school versus not going to school and how that plays into, success rates.
You kind of took me on that direction. I was going to say that post that you posted on Instagram, correct me if I'm wrong, it felt like a lot of the responses were in defense of a process that I wasn't criticizing. Because in the post I said mastering an instrument is not a prerequisite to make great beats. And I did use the word master because that's what came up in the conversation. So yeah, obviously mastering anything, that's a new height, right? That's not just picking up a guitar and being able to strum a few chords. And it seemed like a lot of their responses were either trying to argue with that point or trying to defend one's own process. So if the statement was, which it was, mastering an instrument is not a prerequisite to making great music, some of the responses were, well, this is why I learned how to play an instrument, or I disagree because A, B, and C. And it's just like, why is everything an argument on the internet?
I really wish I would have picked up an instrument just because that shit looks hella cool now.
Yeah, no, it does. I would love to play. I would love to play.
Yeah,
to the point where like I can get on stage. Sorry for there's a delay.
No, it's all good. Yeah, my pops is a drummer, and I had an opportunity to pick up the drums at a very early age, but I would run right past the drum set to go outside and play ball. And I wish I would have picked it up sooner, and I had a very good opportunity to do so because there was a drum set in the den that I walked by every morning. But yeah, it just looks cool. And musicians just look like they have so much fun. And I'm a little jealous of it. Maybe one day I'll pick up an instrument and try to become, at least halfway decent at something.
Yeah, it's never too late, I don't think.
For sure.
And then the second you learn that instrument, you'll be way better than any of us loser producers.
Then I'll make beats. I really have no interest in making beats. And I think I have no interest in making beats because I would listen to my brother make beats when we lived together, and this shit just sounded annoying, just hearing, going through all the sounds, picking the right sounds, and just like do 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 do. Like the process of making a beat is just ridiculously annoying if you're just there and not like participating in the creative process. That it's just,
well, even then, like it can get annoying where I feel bad when I'm collaborating with people and I'm sitting there obsessing over sound selection, and I just went through the same 20 snares. I'm like, I know one of these is right, but I just spent 10 minutes doing this and we're not getting any younger. So let me just pick one. And then the next day I freak out and swap it out. And anyway, so I feel you, Dan.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I think I totally derailed the conversation by going back to this because you started with my tweet, and I'm trying to figure out how my tweet even had anything to do with this conversation that we talked about in the past 10 minutes about playing an instrument versus not playing an instrument.
I was trying to tie them together because it was like that Instagram post you made where you even pinned my response. I was just like, guys, please don't feel the need to defend your process, especially on my account or on account of what I said in that video. I absolutely did not say, and I absolutely would never say one process is inferior to the next. I'd never go out and say people who play an instrument wasted their time. And I would certainly never say producers who don't play an instrument are trash. So it was just one of those things where it feels like the walls are closing in on me sometimes when I'm on the internet. I'm like, I just got to get off this because everything I post, it's a debate, it's an argument, it's an attack. Damn, doesn't that get exhausting to people? Just constantly looking at things from an angle of a personal affront. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. Just because I say producers who don't know how to play instruments can still make great music, that doesn't mean that because you are a master pianist, you have to defend yourself. Like, no, you're good. Everybody's good. We're just making music.
Yeah.
We don't know what the hell is going to happen to our music. We just want to make good music and put it out and see how the people respond to it. And if they respond well, who cares what the process is? We've changed somebody's life. We've affected somebody in a positive way.
That discussion sparked like examples of what some of what I was talking about in my tweet, just in terms of the toxicity and the ridiculousness. And I mean, and that's not the best example, because I think stuff like some of the responses that you got about playing instrument, not playing instrument. I mean, we see that same type of energy under like political posts and things like that. But again, just overall, for people that are looking to get into the music industry, educate yourself, continuously educate yourself. So it's not just like a one-time education, like things are constantly changing. So you have to continuously educate yourself, surround yourself with good people, maintain a healthy mental state, physical state. Yeah. And be a good person. Be a good person yourself, because, if you're a good person, hopefully you attract good people. And once you meet some good people, they're going to introduce you to other good people. So I don't want to make it seem like it's the darkest place ever, but I can say that, if your motivation is to have make a good living, there's plenty of other industries in which you can do that and not deal with some of the bullshit that you have to deal with in the music industry. And then maybe you could just play your music on the side. There's a billion and one ways to make money in this world, and it doesn't have to be music. I mean, there's a lot of ways to make money within the music industry too, but
who was it that said, oh man, it was a recent interview. Damn it, man. Who was it? It was Parks. It was Parks from the Joe Budden podcast. He said, I think he said, I don't want to misquote him, but in a nutshell, we need more. He didn't say failed musicians, but we need more people who didn't succeed as actual music creators to get positions in the music business, management, A&R, that kind of thing. So that he's saying to bridge the gap.
People that didn't make it?
Well, people who like say that tomorrow I quit making beats, right? I understand the struggles of an artist. And let's say tomorrow I become an A&R. I'm able to be a better bridge between the business and the creative space.
Right. I mean, I'd rather have people that made it, but just don't want to do it anymore. And then I agree. I agree with him though. And actually that's why, there were a lot of tech companies that would come to us while Funk Volume existed and want us to use their apps and things like that. And a lot of times there was great technology, but they just didn't understand culture. They didn't understand artists. So I knew that like their app or whatever they were trying to sell us was going to fall on its face. And I think more companies are waking up to that. because they are hiring artists or people that have actual experience in the music industry to bridge that gap between technology and culture. I think that's super important. We may need more of it, but today it exists way more than it did like 10 years ago, where a company would just be like all tech, right? I think Spotify, Apple, like all these places have people that come from the music industry or artists themselves, especially places like Pandora. Pandora has a shitload of artists that work for Pandora. So it is happening, and I think we need more. And hopefully people that listen to this podcast or, that have like business interests can find an opportunity at some of these places while they're pursuing music, so they can build relationships within the industry that they hope, to be in as an artist. Cause that's most ideal. Like if you can work for Pandora or work for Spotify and pursue music, I think that's dope, because you're never really leaving the music realm. It's not like you're delivering water and then, making music at night. So
well, we could say some names too. Abe and Mike Trampy at BeatStars, both rappers. In a former life, even though Abe's putting out new music now. So it makes sense that they're in that space and that they're effective at creating such a useful platform that's intuitive. And so you see producers every day thanking the platform, like, oh, the platform changed my life. I don't know that they couldn't have done that had they not been on the artist side of the coin, but I certainly think it helps.
But so I also know the flip side of this though. Like I know artists that are still too much of an artist to have the job to be successful in that role. Obviously, I'm not going to name names, but it's like they still lack the structure. They still lack to exist in some of these companies. Like they're more structured. They're not. They don't operate the way that like a typical artist does in terms of how they structure their day or the lack of structure of their day. And sometimes they can't really adapt to a more corporate and structured environment. So I've seen that too. But it's dope to have more creative energy in a lot of these companies, because I think it does them well. It makes them more profitable, makes them more relevant. So hopefully, companies keep that trend going.
Oh, and there's this whole tradition of managers who were artists at one point. Usually it's rappers, but producers too. Like when producers sign other producers and they want to insert themselves into the process for better or worse. I remember there was a prominent rapper. This was before I was really in the business, but I was trying to get in. And I remember listening to a song that had this really weird feature. And I'm like, who is rapping on this? And it was the artist manager, who somehow was just like, no, I'm getting on this record. He kind of bullied his way into the record. And then I started seeing more of that as I got into the business, where you would see someone who was a manager, and then next thing you know, he's on stage and he's hype manning. I'm like, okay. And then a year later, he's like, nah, fuck that. I'm putting out an album. I was just like, wait a minute, you can't really. I mean, you can, but it's now you're splitting your duties like this, and your mind isn't truly in managing these. It's clear that you're not done being an artist. So when you said that, I was like, yeah, that's on point. Dave knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, no, I know this is probably not the right way to be, but I'm super skeptical, at least initially, when a manager has like an artist name, whether they used to be a manager, whether they used to be an artist, or just have like an artist name, like they created a name for themselves. I don't know. It makes me feel like you want attention. And I don't feel like the manager should be front and center like that. I know we've seen a lot of managers that have been, but it's like, do you want the attention, or are you trying to, do the best thing for your artist? It would be hard if I was an artist and my manager kept wanting hella attention. I would probably have to have a conversation with him or her.
No, it's a conflict of interest, but then, so back to the Mike Trampy example, because he manages artists too, and he was known in a former life as Mike Vicious, but he's not Mike Vicious the manager. He's Mike Trampy the manager. You know what I mean? And like, well, there are examples of people like DJ Will, for example. You know him, right?
Yeah.
So he's an effective manager.
Yeah, he does a good job.
And Seth, who manages,
No, I'm sure there are it's just me. It's hard for me, like, get out of my head, like, and I will not call ill will. Like, I just call him Will, like, because that it just feels weird to me, even though, he has a long successful history of being a DJ. I know he used to like host like mixtapes and stuff like that. I'm not sure if he's like an actual DJ.
It doesn't matter. He was still he was putting his name on projects.
Yeah, I'm assuming that he is or was, but he's cool. He's hella cool. But again, I've never said, "Hey, ill will." Like, I just call him Will. But yeah. Anyway, I know the podcast is running long. I just wanted to give a couple of thoughts based off of my last conversation I had on the MEC with Leonard Patterson, who's a live streaming expert. He knows more than just live streaming. But I think we have a lot of tools today for artists and everybody. We have a lot of tools, and I think everyone should be taking advantage of live streaming. But I think a lot of people aren't comfortable because it's weird. And especially if you don't have a huge following, like, you get on live and there might be 5 people, or there might be like one person that pops in and out. And the one thing that I want to tell people is still do it, right? Because even if you have one person there or 2 people there, it's good reps to start getting comfortable live streaming, because it's going to take a while. Like, there's not that many people, probably, unless you have a ton of experience on stage, that can just hop on a live stream and entertain people and give people a reason to stay there. So if there's just a few people there, just know you're getting your reps in. But number 2, get to know those few people. Like, if a few people tapped in, get to know who they are. And because this is your potential target audience, and there's probably more people like them. So if you build a relationship with them and get a good understanding of who they are, where they come from, why they're tuning into your live stream, it will give you a better idea of where more of them might be and how to connect and engage with those people. So there's a lot of benefits in the early days of just doing live stream to get your reps in, to learning about who your target audience might be. Because it will take a while. Like, I'm still not comfortable live streaming. It still feels weird to me. This podcast still feels weird to me. Like, doing our live MEC sessions, I'm still not 100% comfortable. And we're probably 4 or 5 years in doing live. Well, we used to do live streams back in 2011, 2012. So I know it's going to be uncomfortable, and I know you might be a little bit embarrassed because other people might pop in and see that there's only 1 or 2 people there. Then they might leave. And in your head, you might think they're laughing at you or think you're stupid or something like that. Got to fight through that. You got to fight through that to get better. Because live streaming is a great tool that you can use to engage and build your audience eventually. So I'm not going to rehash everything we talked about on Monday. But if you're interested in learning more about live streaming, getting comfortable live streaming, how to use live streaming, how to monetize your live stream, the recorded session, just like all of Payne's recorded sessions, are on BeatStars Twitch channel. You can go to beatstars.live and check those out. But Leonard Patterson definitely dropped a ton of gems. And, he gave me some ideas, because we're actually about to start a monthly comedy show here in LA that's going to have a live stream component. So I'm thinking through how to strategize, how to make it the best to grow the audience, promote the brand, monetize. There's a lot of, it's not as simple as just saying, hey, let me just go live and do this. Like, you got to have a strategy, and you have to get good at what you're doing. You have to be consistent. I think that's the key word for everything, to being successful, is just being consistent. So hopefully, even producers, I know producers didn't really sign up to be forward facing. A lot of them aren't comfortable, but use live streaming as a tool to start getting comfortable and build your brand, show your face, because it's going to help, get more placements and build more relationships.
Yeah, and the ones that are really creating successful and sustainable producer brands. I mean, from the Curtis Kings to the Lifestyle did it, to the
Kenny Beats, Illmind.
Kenny Beats, Illmind, Larry O, Eldre. Yeah, those Simon Servita, they're all standing out quite a bit, and they had their careers off of that before any kinds of placements. So they really created a solid foundation for themselves. The same way that someone who's making six figures a year licensing beats on BeatStars and has never had a major placement in their lives, no matter what happens from that point on, they're still supporting themselves and living pretty well. So you can do this with many ways. Live streaming is another way.
Yeah. And there's not very many people that are born just with the gift of gab or just to be able to entertain people. That's learned over time, as you get more comfortable. I think now, even when we're doing this podcast, I'm able to have a conversation and kind of process what we're thinking and think kind of ahead. You just get more comfortable at commanding the communication with the reps. Like there's nothing else that's going to help than getting reps. Even with live shows, right? Like early day live shows, like Hobson and my brother were actually pretty good out, like just from the start. It was actually pretty dope, but they definitely got better over time because you experience things differently every show. Like we weren't playing the best or the biggest venues at first. So there were always issues. The mic goes out, the cord might come out of the mic. Like, how do you respond to that? How do you respond to those things? And if you have the confidence and the experience, you might respond in a way that adds value to the show, as opposed to like looking embarrassed or running off the stage or doing something that doesn't add value to the show. So, and I would think that the last thing I'll say, I'm not going to keep going on, like the live streaming will add value to your live show. And I think doing live shows is going to add value to your live stream, because it's all about confidence and performance. So, I would do a live stream. If you have a reason to do a live stream, I would start doing it consistently. Because I think it would help. I think it would help just in your everyday relationships or public speaking, or, just having the confidence, better articulate yourself. And yeah, that's all I'll say. But it was a dope conversation with Leonard Patterson. He was cool.
All right. And on that note, thank you for tuning in. Definitely hope to see you on one of our free music business mentorship programs. We have a number for you to text so that you're alerted every time we go live. What is that number, Dame?
You just text MEC to 844-206-7800 to get a text right before we go live. Sessions are free. We bring dope people to the platform twice a week. No reason not to tune in. Don't got to tune in every week. Just tune in when you can. Hope to see you there.
Once again, appreciate you tuning in. Peace.
Peace.